What is up, everybody? JT Sports here, back to you guys with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. On this episode, we're going to be discussing, are the Cincinnati Bengals legit Super Bowl contenders? Why Matt Corral should be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers this season? Also going to be talking about my first-year expectations for first-year head coach Mike McDaniels and the Miami Dolphins. And lastly, how good will Spencer Rattler be with South Carolina this upcoming college football season? Now, if this is your first time listening to the JT Sports Podcast, welcome. I appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure that you follow me on all of my social media platforms. You can follow me on Twitter at JT Sports __ and on Instagram at JT Sports _. If you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, which is JT Sports. Now, last season, the Cincinnati Bengals caught the whole entire NFL world by surprise when they not only made it to the playoffs, but they also won the AFC North division. And if that wasn't surprising enough, the Cincinnati Bengals continued to shock the world by beating the Las Vegas Raiders in the wild card, then upsetting the Tennessee Titans on the road, then going right back on the road and beating the Kansas City Chiefs and making it to the Super Bowl. And although they came up short in that Super Bowl, they were really competitive because there were a good amount of people out there who thought that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to go into that Super Bowl against the Rams and that they were just going to get blown out. So one of the biggest storylines, probably the biggest storyline going into the upcoming 2022 NFL season probably has to be, are the Cincinnati Bengals going to be able to repeat the success that they had last season, or are they going to prove to the majority of people out there or the majority of their critics that last season was a one-off season? And honestly, coming from a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I think that the Bengals are legit Super Bowl contenders. I don't think last season was a fluke season, and I don't think they made it to the Super Bowl by luck. Like, you don't know how many people I have talked to over the last couple of months that told me, man, JT, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to fall right back down to earth. They made it to the Super Bowl by luck. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't understand how a team can make it to a Super Bowl by luck. And look at who Cincinnati beat. Like, they beat the two best teams in the AFC in the postseason. Like, if you don't want to give them credit for beating the Raiders, okay. But you at least have to acknowledge the fact that they beat the Tennessee Titans on the road, who, remember, by the way, Tennessee was the number one overall seed in the AFC. And also they had a fully healthy Derrick Henry. Then the following week, they go on the road in the AFC Championship game and defeat the Kansas City Chiefs for the second time in that year, because they had already defeated Kansas City late in the regular season, which that win ended up clinching the AFC North for them. So you look at Cincinnati, I think that this team is going to cement themselves as being legit Super Bowl contenders for at least the next 4 to 5 years, because you have Joe Burrow on a rookie contract. You still have all of your best players playing on rookie deals. So for Cincinnati, what did they do this offseason? Did they address their areas of need? Yes, they did. Pretty much the biggest Achilles heel that Cincinnati had going into this offseason was the offensive line. And what did Cincinnati do this offseason? They improved the offensive line. So you was already pretty set already at left tackle with Jonah Williams. He, without a doubt, was the best offensive lineman that the Bengals had last year. Then you have left guard Carmen Jackson, who they drafted. And I don't really know how good he's going to be, because last year was his rookie year, but I'm eager to see how much he improves this season. Then you bring in Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras. Like, the Cincinnati Bengals went from having one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL to having one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in the span of only one off season. And I was really interested in seeing, was Cincinnati going to address the offensive line? Because for me personally, like, I don't need to see Cincinnati play this season for me to consider them to be Super Bowl contenders. Like, normally I take a wait and see approach. You guys know how I am. I'm pretty conservative. I don't really like to make a lot of predictions until the season is near, but I'm pretty confident in saying that I feel like Cincinnati is going to make it back to the postseason at least. Even if they don't make it back to the Super Bowl, I still feel like this is a playoff caliber football team. And if they miss the playoffs, I would be incredibly shocked because, like, this team is just way too good just to have so much talent and just fall off the face of the earth. Like, I really just can't see it happening. And on top of that, like, Cincinnati showed me this offseason that this is a different organization. This isn't the Cincinnati Bengals that we have known previously, that used to be cheap, didn't want to spend a lot of money in free agency. Like, this is a Cincinnati organization that is committed to winning. They are committed to putting out as much money that is needed to field a championship caliber football team. And they proved that this offseason by addressing the offensive line. Then, on top of that, you pretty much have your best young players still under contract on rookie deals. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all are on dirt cheap rookie deals. So for Cincinnati, like, you're still going to have your young core around for at least the next 3 to 4 years. And then on the defense side of the football, because we talk about how good the offense was last season, which is easily why a lot of people overlook how good this defense was last year. Like, this defense was the most underrated unit in the whole entire NFL, because there were a good amount of games that the Cincinnati Bengals didn't win because of their offense. They won because of their defense. And there are several examples of this. Like, you go back to the second half of the AFC Conference Championship game, right? They were trailing Kansas City going into halftime. Patrick Mahomes and company were moving the ball up and down the field with ease. Well, what do the Cincinnati Bengals do in the second half? Oh, they only hold Patrick Mahomes to 55 yards passing and force him to throw 2 interceptions. Great adjustments. Like, this coaching staff does a very good job at adjusting after halftime and even in-game adjustments. So for me, as a Steelers fan, I got to be completely honest with you. I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are here to stay. I feel like this team is going to be in that championship conversation for years to come, because not only does this team have one of the best rosters in the AFC, they have one of the best rosters in the whole entire NFL, like top to bottom. Like, this roster doesn't really have a lot of holes. Like, we already know how good they are on the offensive side of football. But defensively, like, you look at Sam Hubbard, who has 7.5 sacks. Easily one of the more overlooked and underrated pass rushers that we have in the league. Because when you have a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who's coming off back-to-back double-digit sack seasons, he had 14 sacks last year, 13.5 sacks the year before that. When you have somebody who's having that kind of production, it's easy to overlook a guy like Sam Hubbard, who's having a 7.5 sack season. And anytime you have somebody who's consistently able to put up 6 or more sacks a year, that's really good. Because there are a lot of teams who would love to have at least one consistent pass rusher who could at least give them 6 sacks every single season. Then you look at the linebackers. Now, the linebacker position is where I get into the most arguments with a lot of people about, because most people, casuals out there, they judge players by their PFF grades, right? And Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt didn't really have outstanding PFF grades last year. However, if you actually watch the games and you trust your eyeballs and, you give them the eye test, they were actually pretty solid. At least in the postseason. Like, in the postseason, like, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, like, they elevated their level of play. Like, even if they weren't as good in the regular season, like, they were phenomenal in the postseason. And if they're able to continue their performance that they had in the postseason, and they're able to bring that into the 2022 NFL season, this defense is going to take monumental steps, because this was already a really good defense. Now this defense has potential that if Logan Wilson and Jermaine game plan, keep up that level of play that they had in the postseason, this is a defense that maybe could end up being top 5 or top 7 unit in the league. And that's scary to think, because imagine this. Imagine having a top 5 offense and then you have a top 10 defense. And here's the thing. It's crazy that Cincinnati had one of the best offenses in the NFL last year, despite having one of the worst offensive lines in the league. Now, imagine all the damage that they're going to do this year on the offensive side of football with one of the best offensive lines in the league. Like, it's going to be crazy. Like, Joe Burrow just might win NFL MVP this year. He just might throw 60 touchdowns this year. And no, I'm not saying that as a joke. Like, I'm being dead serious. Like, Joe Burrow might just go for 60 touchdowns this year. It might happen because, like, the dude only had, 2 seconds to throw the football, maybe 3 at most. Now you put him behind the best offensive line or one of the best all O-lines in the league, and you give him more time to throw. Oh my goodness, boy. Things are going to get ugly if you don't have a good secondary or if you don't have a good pass rush. Now, when it comes to Cincinnati coming back down to earth, I don't think they're going to miss the postseason. As a matter of fact, I would be incredibly shocked if Cincinnati missed the playoffs. And if you've watched or listened to the podcast for the last couple of months or years, you guys would know that I don't normally like making a lot of predictions until nearing the start of the season. However, I'm going to go out and give you an early prediction. I think that Cincinnati is going to end up making it to the playoffs. Now, I don't know if they're going to end up having, the number 1 overall seed. And I don't know if they're going to end up winning more games than what they did last year. They might end up winning 11. But this division is really tough. And you definitely do have to acknowledge that, because the whole entire division got better. Like, Cincinnati got better, and the rest of the division also got better. You look at the Cleveland Browns, they upgraded at the quarterback position with Deshaun Watson. Now, pending, we don't know what Deshaun Watson's status is when it comes to him playing this year. Like, it's really weird. There's always something new about his legal situation coming up. Like, now he has to go back to Houston, or they're trying to get him to come back to Houston for, like, it's weird. There's always something with the Deshaun Watson saga. There's always something new coming out every single day, it seems like. But if he does play, the Browns are going to be there. Then what about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know if you guys forgot, but they made it to the playoffs with one of the worst O-lines in the league, pretty much 0 to minimum offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers' most valuable player, other than T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward and Minka Fitzpatrick, was Chris Boswell. Chris Boswell was probably one of the best offensive weapons that Pittsburgh had, because he was one of the only people who was actually putting points up on the board for Pittsburgh. Then you look at the fact that they improved the offensive line and they finally bring in their guy at quarterback and Kenny Pickett. Like, Pittsburgh could be a really scary football team. Then you look at the Baltimore Ravens. Like, the Baltimore Ravens were already in everybody's, Super Bowl conversation. There were a good amount of people who picked them to win the AFC North last year. There were also a good amount of people who felt like they could end up making it to the Super Bowl. However, injuries derailed their season before it really got started. Like, their whole entire running back room went down with injuries. Then you had Lamar Jackson, who dealt with injuries, and that pretty much eroded away the season that the Baltimore Ravens had, which started out with a lot of promise, because at one point when Lamar Jackson was healthy, the Baltimore Ravens had the number 1 or number 2 seed in the AFC at a point, and then once he went down, things just kind of went downhill from there. So for Cincinnati, it is going to be really hard seeing them winning more than 11 games and getting the number 1 seed with how tough this division is going to be. Like, we're not going to see Joe Burrow throw for over 2,000 yards against the Baltimore Ravens again like he did last year. Like, the Baltimore Ravens probably have had one of the best off seasons in the NFL along with Cincinnati. And I think, you could say that pretty much every team in the AFC North has had a really good off season. No team really got worse from this division. But when you look at Cincinnati, if you had to ask a Bengals fan, okay, what's the position that you have the most worries about it's probably going to be, corner. It's not really the whole entire cornerback group because Chidobe Awuzie was the best cornerback that the Bengals had last year. Then you got Mike Hilton, who we already know is probably the best slot cornerback in the league. But you re-signed Eli Apple to a 1-year deal. And it kind of surprised me, because a lot of people, when you think about Eli Apple, you think about him talking a lot of trash on Twitter and not being able to back it up, allowing Cooper Kupp to score the go-ahead touchdown, which pretty much sealed the victory for the LA Rams. But a lot of people also forget all of the good moments that Eli Apple had. And he had a lot of big moments where he came up big for Cincinnati. Like, I forgot what game it was, but he had a pass that he ended up tipping to another defender on the Bengals team and ended up getting intercepted, and it ended up winning the game for Cincinnati. So for as many lowlights that Eli Apple had last season, he also had a lot of big moments for Cincinnati as well. And if Eli Apple was, terrible, I'm pretty sure Cincinnati wouldn't have re-signed him. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't even be on the NFL roster right now. Now, I am really intrigued in seeing what they're going to do with rookie defensive back Daxton Hill out of Michigan, because he can pretty much play anything when it comes to secondary. You can put him at corner, you can put him in the slot, you can put him at any of the two safety positions. And we don't know what's going to happen with Jesse Bates, because Jesse Bates got franchise tag. Now, we don't know if him and Cincinnati are going to be able to come to terms on a long-term extension before the season. And if they're not able to come to terms on a long-term extension, is there a possibility that maybe Jesse Bates gets traded before the season starts? I don't know. That's really interesting to figure out, but I guess we're going to get the answers to that coming up in the next couple of weeks and months. Then you also have Von Bell, who also is pretty good. So for Cincinnati, this is a really talented roster, and this is a team that I think their coaching staff is really good when it comes to making adjustments. Cincinnati is going to be in the postseason this year. I don't think they're going to have that big of a drop off. Now, how far are they going to go in the postseason? That remains to be decided. I'm not going to give you guys that. I'm going to hold off on my Super Bowl prediction. But when it comes to Cincinnati being in that Super Bowl conversation, I definitely feel like they deserve and they definitely belong in that conversation, because at least when you're looking at them on paper, this team looks to be one of the best in the league. And with the improvement of the offensive line, they're going to be even better on the offensive side of the football. And if they didn't play in the AFC North, they played in the AFC South, or maybe the NFC South, they probably end up winning that division with ease, because this team is just so good. And this is coming from a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, by the way. And, I don't have no problem giving the Cincinnati Bengals their roses. I've been giving the Cincinnati Bengals their flowers since, week 5 of last year? I admitted right off the bat that, hey, I was wrong about the Cincinnati Bengals. Even though it's not like I had them being one of the worst teams in the league like most people did. I had them winning somewhere between 6 and 7 games. And I said the best case scenario for Cincinnati, maybe they could end up winning 10 games if everything goes right, but I didn't know if the offensive line was going to hold up. Now, I don't have that same worry about Cincinnati that I did last season, because now you have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And then think about Joe Mixon. I also can't forget about him. So, this team is going to be really good. And if you don't view Cincinnati as a Super Bowl contender right now, you're going to take a wait-and-see approach with them. I can understand that. I can understand sometimes, when a team kind of comes out of nowhere, they kind of have to prove themselves, because you remember when the Jacksonville Jaguars, that 2017-2018 season they had, when they went all the way to the AFC Championship game, and they were a bad call away from making it to the Super Bowl, I don't know why the referees overturned that, but that obviously kind of screwed over Jacksonville. And Jacksonville, they were really close to beating New England in that AFC Championship game. But I told everybody, it was going to come down to Blake Bortles. So, when you look at Cincinnati, this is a organization that is not the same that you used to think that it Cincinnati is not the same organization that they were years ago. Like, this is a completely different organization. This is a organization that is now committed to doing whatever it takes to field a competitive football team. This is a franchise that is committed to winning, and this is a franchise that now, with them actually having a taste of the Super Bowl for the first time in I don't know when's the last time they went to the Super Bowl prior to last year. So for Cincinnati, like, I feel like that franchise, with them getting into the Super Bowl and them coming really close to winning it, kind of made the front office say, you know what, like, we're going to improve the team so much that if we get back there, we're going to win it. So you look at Joe Burrow and you look at the impact that he has. Like, I think Joe Burrow is the kind of player that, as long as he's your starting quarterback, you're not going to miss the playoffs too many times. And we think about Carson Palmer. You know, Carson Palmer was really good during his time with the Cincinnati Bengals. However, he wasn't as good as Joe Burrow. Like, Carson Palmer was a good taxi driver. You know, you gave him the keys and you gave him a couple of parts, he could get you there. But he could never really get you over the hump. And really, no previous Cincinnati quarterback has been able to get Cincinnati over the hump, because, like, didn't Cincinnati have, like, one of the longest droughts in the NFL without a playoff win? Well, Joe Burrow gets to the playoffs his first time in his career, and he automatically gets you to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, like, Joe Burrow is the kind of player that, as long as he's on your team, you always have a fighting chance. I call him Money Burrow, because if you he comes up a lot if you pick him in the spread. So, Money Man, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, whatever you want to call him, the dude is legit. The dude, in my opinion, is a top 3, top 5 quarterback already in this league. Like, as long as he remains under center for Cincinnati, and Cincinnati continues to, you know, give him the pieces necessary, they're going to be in that Super Bowl discussion. I feel like this season they're going to cement themselves as legitimate contenders in the Super Bowl conversation for the next couple of years to come. Now, we're going to be having a good amount of quarterback competition during training camp before the regular season kicks off. You know, we got Marcus Mariota versus Desmond Ridder. We're going to have Kenny Pickett versus Mitchell Trubisky, you know, and we're going to have Matt Corral versus Sam Darnold. And this is going to be a really intriguing quarterback battle. And when you talk to Panthers fans, you know, like, there were a good amount of Panthers fans that didn't really want Carolina to draft the quarterback early. There were a lot of Panthers fans who wanted Carolina to improve the offensive line first, then address the quarterback situation later if there was a good one available later in the draft, which that ended up happening. Matt Corral ended up falling to you in the 3rd round, even though you kind of had to trade up for him. They traded up with the Patriots, giving up their 5th and 3rd round selections. But I mean, I think that you're getting a quarterback that's going to be able to come in and start right away. And as a matter of fact, you know, like, I think that Carolina should start Matt Corral this season, because, like, Matt Rule's on the hot seat, and you Panthers fans already want him gone, so I'm pretty sure he's already on a thin leash. So, if you're in Matt Rule's shoes, and you're on the hot seat, and you're pretty much coaching for your career at this point, who would you feel more comfortable with? Sam Darnold or Matt Corral? I would have to go with Matt Corral, because, like, we've seen Sam Darnold, and we've seen what Sam Darnold is. Sam Darnold is a backup quarterback, a fringe starter at most. Okay? Like, everybody keeps saying, oh, JT, like, you got to give Sam Darnold a chance. Like, you got to give him weapons. He needs this. Like, you got to build a good team around Sam Darnold. Like, do you know how long we have been hearing this? We've been hearing this for, like, the last 3 years. Okay? Like, I'm done. Like, I've seen enough out of Sam Darnold. Like, you want to know one of the biggest life lessons that I've learned over this year? I learned that you have to be able to learn when to cut ties with people. Because me as a person, I'm somebody who doesn't give up on things easily. You know, like, if I fail at something, I keep trying and trying and trying again until I'm going to go to the grave trying. You feel me? That's just the kind of person I am. However, when it comes to people, you know, like, certain people you can only give a certain amount of chances until you have to cut ties with them, because the longer they stay around, the longer they're going to hinder you achieving your goals. And for Carolina, like the longer Sam Darnold remains the starting quarterback in Carolina, the more he's going to hinder this team being able to make it to the playoffs, because like the dude only played good in like 3 games, the first 3 games of the season against the Texans, the Saints, and I forget who the other team was. I think it was the Jets. Somebody let me know. But I mean, like, they weren't good, and when they played the Saints, like the Saints coaching staff like got COVID or something like that. So after they started out 3-0, they came back down to earth really, really fast. And I was waiting for them to come back to earth because I knew it was going to happen. Like everybody was already saying that they were going to be playoff contenders. Everybody was hitting me up saying, "Oh, JT, like you don't think Carolina's a playoff team still?" And I was like, "Nah," because I mean, like it's only the start of the regular season. Let's give it some time. And like, for Sam Darnold, like I kind of had high expectations for him going into last year. Well, I wouldn't say high expectations, but it's like I kind of felt like he would be okay. I felt like he would be decent. I didn't know he would end up being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league last year, because like Carolina, like although the offensive line wasn't that great, like he had weapons. You had DJ Moore, you had Robbie Anderson, and even though Robbie Anderson is kind of inconsistent at times, like he's still solid. At times, he's still a really good deep threat. He's one of the best deep threats in the league. It's just that, they couldn't find ways to get him the ball. You also had the play calling, which wasn't all that great, which they ended up firing their offensive coordinator mid-season on his day off. So for Sam Darnold, like, I've seen enough of Sam Darnold. Panthers fans deserve something new. And Matt Rule and the Panthers general manager, like, they've tried going the veteran quarterback route. Matt Rule's first season, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. They moved on from him. Then you bring in Sam Darnold, year 2. Like, he doesn't really give you any stability at the quarterback position. So, I mean, like, you failed when it came to bringing in veterans. How about now you try to draft somebody, develop him, and see what he can do? Because for Matt Corral, like, he has the skill set to start day one. And I don't care if he needs to sit a year or whatnot, like, Matt Corral gives you a better chance of making it to the postseason than what Sam Darnold does. Because Matt Corral has a super fast release, which is something that Sam Darnold doesn't have, which is something that a lot of Panthers fans always harp about when it comes to Sam Darnold, is that he gets the ball out too slow and he holds on to the football too long. Matt Corral's the opposite. He has a fast release. He also has a really strong arm, and he has really solid mechanics. Like, if you go and you read the scouting reports on Matt Corral, if you go to NFL.com or you Google Matt Corral's scouting report, you're not really going to see too many people in their scouting reports harp on Matt Corral's mechanics. Like, his mechanics are pretty much as good as they're going to get for a rookie quarterback. Like, he has a really tight release. Like, he has pretty solid footwork. Like, Matt Corral's mechanics are really solid. He also has the ability to extend plays, very good mobility. However, he needs to learn how to slide because he kind of has a slender build. And his running style, like, the dude runs reckless. Like, the dude just runs with caution to the wind, and he gets messed up a good amount of times. Like, there were a lot of times last season where he got effed up. Like, a lot of dudes will put in Matt Corral on their highlight tapes, boy, because he got messed up a couple of times last season. So even though he is tough, dude needs to learn how to slide if he wants to be able to prolong his career, because durability is a huge concern of his. He's also really good when it comes to his accuracy in the short and intermediate range. And that's why I think that Matt Corral gives the Carolina Panthers the best chance to win, because Ben McAdoo reportedly was very confident in Matt Corral's skill set and the fact that he felt like Matt Corral would be able to transition into his offense smoothly, according to the Carolina Panthers general manager. And when it comes to offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo, who is the new OC for Carolina, the kind of offense that he has ran in the past has been, a up-tempo West Coast style offense, rhythmatic passing, 3-step drops, getting the ball out fast off bubble screens, slants, drags, and whatnot. And, a lot of people consider his offense to be kind of vanilla, a little bit too simplistic. But, however, I feel like him having a simplistic offense could be more of a pro versus it being more of a con when it comes to, Matt Corral, because Matt Corral, the biggest knock on Matt Corral is that a lot of people don't really know how good he's going to be when it comes to being able to make full read progressions and being able to, dissect the NFL defense, because he kind of played in a quarterback-friendly system at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin that's predicated off play action and a lot of RPOs. And when it comes to RPOs, you're not really doing a lot of reading. You're kind of only reading like one or two things. You're either trying to see how many people are in the box, or you're trying to see, who's covering who. If he ends up crashing down, then you throw it to this guy. So for Matt Corral, you definitely want to see how much he's going to improve in his ability to, process defenses and being able to make the proper decisions. But, that's what coaching is for. There's going to be a lot of Panthers fans who are probably going to comment on this video and say, JT, Matt Corral's not ready to start yet. But it's like, if you have a coaching staff, he should be able to get coached up and over the next couple of months, and he should be able to play week 1. And on top of that, Matt Corral isn't going to be in the situation that Sam Darnold was in last year. Sam Darnold was playing with a not so good offensive line. This year, the Panthers' offensive line is tremendously improved a lot, and their offensive line should be really solid this year. So for Matt Corral, he is going to end up playing behind a really solid offensive line. You're going to have Chris McCaffrey back in the backfield. Hopefully, he can stay healthy. Then you're going to have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrence Marshall. You're going to have enough weapons for Matt Corral to have a successful rookie season. And Ben McAdoo, according to the Carolina Panthers general manager, he played a big part in the decision to draft Matt Corral. As a matter of fact, they asked for his input because Ben McAdoo has been really accurate when it comes to his analysis on quarterback prospects coming out of the NFL draft in the past. As a matter of fact, according to the Panthers general manager in a discussion with WNFZ, the clubhouse, he said that we've seen his old reports and they're time-stamped, and he's very accurate in terms of his quarterback projections. Back in 2017, when Ben McAdoo was the head coach of the New York Giants, remember ESPN had reported that the Giants and Ben McAdoo, or at least Ben McAdoo, was trying to make a strong push for the Giants to draft Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes. However, that didn't happen. Then, in a 2018 interview with the New York Post, prior to the draft, Ben McAdoo was asked to rank, some of the top quarterback prospects in that 2018 draft. And he listed them in order. And the quarterbacks that he listed in this order, number 1, he had Josh Allen. Behind Josh Allen, at number 2, he had Lamar. Then he had Sam Darnold at 3, followed by Josh Rosen, Mason Rudolph, and Baker Mayfield. So, the dude definitely has an eye when it comes to assessing the quarterback position. And also, another thing that the general manager for Carolina said is that when it got to this year's class, we did lean on him in his expertise, he added. And he also said that he really likes Matt Corral's quick release and his mobility in the pocket, his ability to see the field. So he had a strong conviction on him, and Ben McAdoo is a big reason why Matt Corral is here with the Carolina Panthers at this moment. So pretty much Ben McAdoo said that, hey man, I feel like Matt Corral's the guy that I can have the most success with in this offense. So Matt Rule is putting a lot of faith into Ben McAdoo. And not only is Matt Rule putting a lot of faith into Ben McAdoo, but the whole entire front office seems to be putting a lot of trust into Ben McAdoo because, we're not worried about the defense. Their defense is going to be really good. They have one of the best young defenses in the league. They have studs everywhere on defense. Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin are the two main players who comes to mind in that regard. But, for Matt Corral, it seems like Ben McAdoo sees something in Matt Corral that makes him think that he can have success with this guy immediately. Because let's be honest, if you think that Carolina traded up for Matt Corral for him to sit behind Sam Darnold for a year, I think you're sadly mistaken, because you got to understand the situation right now. Matt Rule doesn't have the luxury of being able to look forward into the future because he knows that there might not be a future. Because if he doesn't end up producing this season, he's going to end up getting that pink slip. He's going to end up in the unemployment line, probably going back to coaching in the college football ranks. If Carolina ends up not living up to the expectations that, the people and the owner and the front office have. So for Matt Rule, it just makes sense to start Matt Corral. Like, Matt Corral gives you the better chance to succeed. Like, we've seen Sam Darnold. As a matter of fact, we've seen enough out of Sam Darnold. I want Sam Darnold to succeed too, but it's just like in Carolina, I just don't think it's going to work. And we've been saying, all Sam Darnold needs is a good coaching staff and a good team around him. Like, we've been hearing this for years. And you got to remember, like, this dude was a first-round pick. Like, a first-round pick has to be able to overcome dysfunctionality. A first-round pick has to be able to overcome not having the best team all the time, because when you're a first-round pick and you're drafted inside the top 10, the majority of the time you're going to a poor organization that doesn't really have a long history of consistency and success. So when you look at Joe Burrow, was he playing behind the best offensive line in the NFL his rookie season? No, he was not, and it got him killed. It got a season in the end early. You get what I'm saying? And even last year, he was still playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And yet, he took him to the Super Bowl because he had good weapons on the outside. So for Sam Darnold, like, it's really no excuses, because I've seen quarterbacks do more with less. Like, come on. Gardner Minshew had a better 2-year run than what Sam Darnold has had in his whole entire career so far. Like, Sam Darnold isn't even, like, if you were to rank all of the starting quarterbacks right now, or not even the starting quarterbacks, if you were to rank every single quarterback in the NFL, including, the second stringers, Sam Darnold probably would be like the 35th or 36th ranked quarterback. And I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, I'm being dead serious with you. Like, for Sam Darnold, like, I know he has flashes and whatnot, but at this point, like, we've seen enough. Like, give my guy Matt Corral a chance. Like, the dude has a really good arm. He is really accurate in the short intermediate game. And apparently, Ben McAdoo views him as a great fit in his scheme and in his offense. So, I mean, like, honestly, I feel like if Matt Corral starts, I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina makes it to the postseason. As a matter of fact, if Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback for Carolina this year, Carolina would not make it to the playoffs. You looking for a hot take? You looking for a way too early prediction? There you go. I normally don't like doing hot takes. I normally don't like doing predictions until we get near the start of the season. But for those of you guys who just want a prediction, there you go. If Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback for Carolina, they're not going to make it to the postseason. Now, if Matt Corral is the starting quarterback for Carolina, I think that they have a very good chance of being able to make it to the playoffs, because one thing that I think Matt Corral is ahead of and Sam Darnold in several aspects is his decision making. And on top of that, like, I feel like he's a more confident quarterback than Sam Darnold, because I saw a guy in Matt Corral, like, when his team needed him to make big plays, the guy stepped up. The guy put his body on the line. Like, the guy played in a bowl game that a lot of players probably would have sat out of. And the dude got injured in this same bowl game that a lot of people say he should have sat out of. So that shows you how much heart he has. That shows you how much passion he has. That shows you the kind of leader this man is. Like, everybody in that Ole Miss program, they had nothing but rave reviews about Matt Corral. Now, I know he has some off-the-field issues really early in his career, but ever since Lane Kiffin arrived at Ole Miss, like, you've heard nothing but positive things about Matt Corral, his work ethic, his leadership. Like, this is a guy who's going to rally the troops. And when you look at Sam Darnold, like, I saw an interview, like, a couple of days before the draft when somebody asked him, what about the possibility of Carolina taking another quarterback? Like, the dude was like, it's out of my control. If it happens, it's happening. Like, that's not kind of what I want to hear from my starting quarterback. Like, I want to hear my starting quarterback say, like, man, like, if they take a quarterback, it is what it is. Like, I'm still going to go. I'm still going to compete. I'm still going to give it my all. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to hear none of that. If it happens, it happens. So, basically, like, you're going to allow Carolina to draft another quarterback and you're just going to let him take your job? You get what I'm saying? Like, where's the confidence? You get what I'm saying? Like, where's the moxie? You get what I'm saying? Like, I want somebody who's confident. You get what I'm saying? Now, I don't want nobody that's cocky, like Aaron Rodgers cocky or anything like that. But I want a quarterback that's going to, have some confidence. You get what I'm saying? And that's why I really like Matt Corral. Like, Matt Corral was my number one ranked quarterback at one point, and I still held him in a pretty high regard. So for Carolina, like, I feel like Matt Corral is going to do some really big things for Carolina if he ends up getting a start. And I've seen a lot of Panthers fans, well, not a lot, but I've seen a small amount of Panthers fans disrespect Matt Corral and compare him to Will Grier. Like, Matt Corral and Will Grier are not even the remotely same players. Like, Will Grier didn't have the kind of mobility that Matt Corral had. He also didn't have the arm that Matt Corral had neither, or the athleticism. Like, Matt Corral, Will Grier, two different quarterbacks. Don't disrespect Matt Corral like that. On top of that, if you're a Panthers fan, you better be hoping that Matt Corral isn't Will Grier. Because, I mean, you need a quarterback. Like, do you guys want to make it to the postseason? Are you guys tired of, like, being on the couch and watching your favorite team not do anything come January, February? Like, if you're Carolina, you should be rooting for Matt Corral to succeed. And, I mean, you probably should be rooting for Sam Darnold, too. But, I mean, like, Matt Corral has more talent and more upside, and we already seen Sam Darnold. So for me personally, like, I think that the Carolina Panthers should be starting Matt Corral week 1 of the upcoming NFL season. I'm not saying they should just give him the job. I do expect Matt Corral to, win this job outright during, OTAs, training camp, the preseason. I expect that. So if Matt Corral ends up, starting week 1, I think it's going to be more because he just was the better quarterback and he won the job outright. So you guys let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that the Carolina Panthers should start Matt Corral over Sam Darnold? Because I think they should. I think that Matt Corral gives them the best chance to succeed. And I had somebody on Instagram talk about how, the Carolina Panthers have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. Like, who cares? Like, what does that mean? You got the toughest schedule in the NFL and you want to start Sam Darnold again? Are you serious? And I understand you got to have a better team, but at the end of the day, like, there are certain things that Sam Darnold does that aren't really implications of the talent around him. There are just certain things that he just isn't good at doing. Like, he's not good at taking care of the football, and he doesn't really read the field all that well. You get what I'm saying? Like, these are things that, a guy who's been in the league as long as Sam Darnold has should already have fixed. Yet, Sam Darnold's been in the league longer than, Matt Corral has, and he still has as many issues as, you could say Matt Corral has. And you get what I'm saying? So, also for Sam Darnold, like, it's not all his fault. He kind of got, messed over or screwed over by the New York Jets because they failed to build around him, and it kind of held back his development. And now, he has all these problems and all these bad habits that he never was able to get coached out of because of him not really having the greatest talent around him, getting punished. However, you got to go out there and you got to make plays, man. Like, I ain't see Justin Herbert making excuses for having, a bad offensive line his rookie season. Dude went out there behind a not so great offensive line and had the greatest rookie season that we've ever seen from a rookie quarterback. So, I mean, I'm not really trying to hear no more excuses for Sam Darnold. If the dude starts, he needs to get it done. You get what I'm saying? But if the Panthers were smart, and if you're Matt Rule, if I was Matt Rule, I would start Matt Corral. I've seen enough. You got to learn how to cut your ties. Because if Carolina ends up starting Matt Corral, I think they have a really good chance at making it to the postseason. But you guys let me know how you guys feel about this down in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube. So I want to talk about my first year expectations for new head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Mike McDaniel. Now, Mike McDaniel previously spent time with the 49ers. He was their offensive coordinator. He also had a couple of other roles on Kyle Shanahan's staff throughout the years. And I'm going to be honest, this is my favorite head coaching hiring of all time. As soon as I saw the notification pop up that said the Miami Dolphins are hiring Mike McDaniels to be their next head coach, I was like, who is Mike McDaniels? And I looked up and I saw how he looked. The dude kind of looks a little bit nerdy and geeky in a lot of people's eyes. I was like, oh yeah, like this dude is going to do some things. Like, I'm expecting Mike McDaniels to have a lot of success with the Miami Dolphins. Like, if you hear him talk, the dude just knows so much about football. Like, I'm like, golly, man, like, I get it. You know a lot, man. And he's automatically an upgrade on the offensive side of football because now you're actually going to have a guy who knows what he's doing on offense. Because, like, I know there are a lot of people who are big fans of Brian Flores and whatnot, but let's just be honest. Like, Brian Flores, and I don't like using this term a lot, but he was kind of overrated. Like, a lot of people consider him to be one of the best coaches in the league, but yet, like, he didn't even make it to the playoffs. not one season. However, he did, overachieve and whatnot. Being able to win 6 games his first year of the roster that he had was definitely a miracle. However, it's like the dude had like 3 offensive coordinators. And I don't even know how that process went. Like 3 offensive coordinators. Like first it was 2. Then I asked a couple of Dolphins fans. He said no. Like we actually had 3 offensive coordinators. So apparently they couldn't find a RPO scheme alone, so they had to bring in 2 other guys to come up with a scheme since Tua was limited by his hip, his strength, and his inability to roll out the pocket due to the fact that the Dolphins didn't have a good offensive line. So it's like, I don't even know how Tua was supposed to develop when you had 3 offensive coordinators. Like, how does the play even get radioed in? Like, do like the 2 offensive coordinators on the sideline like have like a little debate about what's going to be the play call? Then I guess they radio in to somebody else and he gives the play call to Tua. Like, what? You get what I'm saying? So like, I don't understand, why people hold Brian Flores in such this high regard. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the dude is a bad coach. Like, the dude was a solid coach, but not, a great coach like a lot of people try to make him out to be. Like, people were trying to make him out to be like he was a top 10 coach in the league or something. Like, he was a top 10 coach in the league. Why didn't he get the Dolphins to the postseason? You get what I'm saying? And, like, on top of that, like, dude was toxic. You get what I'm saying? Like, I understand he didn't want Tua. I get that. He wanted Justin Herbert. But the reports are like, he was an a-hole to Tua to a degree. Like, he was calling the dude trash in practice, like, bringing him down. Like, there were times that we are forced to work with people that we don't want to work with. Okay? And it was stupid on the Dolphins' part by drafting a quarterback who your head coach didn't want in the first place. You get what I'm saying? However, it's like, it's still one team, one goal. So even if you didn't like Tua, like, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to, talk down on your starting quarterback, ruin his confidence, and then you further ruin his development or hinder his development by, complicating the play calling process. Like, how could any quarterback, have success with 3 offensive coordinators? Like, that makes no sense. And I'm not saying he had 3 different offensive coordinators, like a different offensive coordinator every season. Like, no, the dude literally last season, the Dolphins had 3 offensive coordinators. Literally. So for Mike McDaniel, it's a breath of fresh air, because now you have a guy who knows what to do on the offensive side of the football. And we know kind of what system Mike McDaniel is going to implement. It's going to be similar to that West Coast style offense that Kyle Shanahan runs in San Francisco. So we're probably going to see Miami put a lot of emphasis on running the football. But on top of that, I'm really intrigued in seeing the creativity that Mike McDaniel is going to bring to the Dolphins offense, because you have 2 of the fastest wide receivers in the game in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So it's like, how do you game plan for that? And if Mike McDaniels is the kind of offensive guru that I think he is, this offense potentially could end up being top 5 or at worst top 10, because everybody talks about, how Tua doesn't have a strong arm and whatnot, but you don't have to have a strong arm to be an effective quarterback in the league. Drew Brees didn't really have a strong arm. There are plenty of quarterbacks who have been successful in this league without having a strong arm. You don't need a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert kind of arm to be successful. There are different ways to win in this league. And for Tua, he wins it by dominating in the short and intermediate passing game, which I think that Mike McDaniels is going to put a lot of emphasis on. He's going to get that run game going. He's going to set up the pass game with the short passes. And then when the defense starts trying to play over the top, that's when you take shots downfield and beat them over the top. And with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that shouldn't really be that hard to do. Like, Tua doesn't really need that strong of an arm. Really, like, all he just needs is for them to just create a little bit of separation. As long as he has enough arm to lead them, for Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to run after the ball, that's really all he needs. So it's like, when you have two of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL, like, you don't really need, the greatest quarterback to get them the football. All you really need to do is get them out in space. Tyreek Hill doesn't need the greatest quarterback to be throwing him the football. All he needs is just space. And by running bubble screens, slant passes, drag routes, sending Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in motion, that's going to cause a lot of problems for the defense. Then on top of that, you improve the offensive line. You brought in left tackle Teron Armstead. You bring in offensive guard Connor Williams. You also bring in a good amount of running backs like Chase Edmonds, who formerly played for the Arizona Cardinals. I love him. I think the dude might end up being a beast. Then you bring in Raheem Mostert. Like, the Dolphins have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the football going into this season that Tua Tagovailoa never had previously. So for Tua now, he has all the keys to the Mercedes. Now he just needs to drive them to the postseason. And I think that most definitely could happen depending on how a couple of things work out when it comes to their schedule and whatnot. I'm still waiting for the official schedule to be released before I give my official prediction on the Miami Dolphins making it to the playoffs or not. But if you were to ask me right now, JT, like, do you think the Dolphins are a playoff contender? Yes, they are. And with Mike McDaniel, I expect this team to be in the postseason this year. Now, I know some Dolphins fans may be like, oh, your expectations are a little bit too lofty. Like, no, they're not. Like, Brian Flores last season had this team on the brink of making it to the postseason twice. You get what I'm saying? So Brian Flores had this team coming close on the outside looking in and getting into the playoffs. Mike McDaniel should be able to get this team into the postseason. The team should not be going backwards in no stretch of imagination. No excuses. You get what I'm saying? There's no excuses for Mike McDaniel winning less games than what Brian Flores did, especially with the fact that now he has even more talent to work with on the offensive side of the football. And on top of that, he's an offensive-minded coach. So with him being an offensive-minded coach, the offense should be the strength of his team. And he also sounds really excited to be working with Tua Tagovailoa. And it's kind of refreshing to hear somebody speak good of Tua, because we never really heard Brian Flores speak good of Tua. As a matter of fact, not too many people ever really speak good of Tua. And I'm really hoping that Mike McDaniels works out as a head coach for Miami, and I really believe that he will, because most coaches that come from these Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan coaching trees, like, these guys really know football. So for Mike McDaniel, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this year with Miami. Like, this offense should be no worse than top 10, and this defense probably still should be really good, even though you're not going to have, the defensive expertise of Brian Flores, since he was a defensive-minded coach. He specialized on that side of the football. Like, you still have enough talent that as long as the defensive coordinator for Miami is, at least competent or at least solid in play calling, like, the defense should still be pretty good. There shouldn't be a tremendous drop-off. Their defense shouldn't go from being, what it was last year, being really good, to being one of the worst in the league. They just have way too much talent. They have one of the best quarterback tandems in the league with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. Like, you have a pretty good pass rushing duo. You have Emmanuel Ogbah, who's been your most productive pass rusher. Then you have Jalen Phillips, who should have a breakout season going into his second year in the NFL. So this is a Miami Dolphins team that does have enough talent to at least get into the playoffs as a 6 or 7 seed. So my first year expectations for the Miami Dolphins with new head coach Mike McDaniels is to at least make it to the playoffs as a 6 or 7 seed, because that's really what this team has been, at least over the last year or so. They have been a borderline playoff team. And you look at the moves that they made this offseason by signing guys like, Connor Williams and Teron Armstead and trading for Tyreek Hill. They have went from a borderline playoff team to being a playoff contender. So they should be in the postseason. They should at least be able to get in, find a way to backdoor their way in, 6, 7 seed, and then, maybe win a game in the wild card round and then get knocked out in the divisional round. So for Miami, it's just way too much talent for this team to not make it to the postseason. And if Mike McDaniel and this Dolphins team ends up winning less games than what Brian Flores has done previously, then I'm going to look back at this hiring and I'm going to say, okay, now I have my reservations about it. But Mike McDaniel, from everything that he said and everything that he's talked about wanting to implement and everything that he wants to do with Tua Tagovailoa and whatnot, like, I think that this hiring is going to end up being one of the better hirings that have went down this offseason. And then on top of that, like, you look at Tua Tagovailoa, like, Tua Tagovailoa is also going to play a big part into the equation determining how good Miami is, because he's gained weight. The dude has bulked up. He's trying to get more healthy. He's trying to improve his durability, because the only way Miami is going to have a legit chance of making it to the postseason is if Tua Tagovailoa is able to stay healthy. But I mean, you do have Teddy Bridgewater, so I guess even if Tua isn't able to stay healthy, like, I think Teddy is good enough to get you there also, because you kind of have like a similar skill set with him and Tua, not really having the strongest arms, but really being good in the short and intermediate passing game. So playoff or bust for the Miami Dolphins are my first year expectations for this team with their first year head coach and Mike McDaniel. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up this episode of the podcast, how good will Spencer Rattler be with South Carolina in 2022? Now, I recently just got done watching the spring game. I was kind of irritated because I couldn't find a way to watch the full spring game. Doggone it, Disney and ESPN for making everything having to be watched through ESPN Plus or having to pay for everything. But I had to watch like the highlights. It was like 30 minutes of the spring game, and I was able to gather enough information, and I was able to see enough that made me comfortable making this video about Spencer Rattler, because like, I think he's going to end up having a really solid season for South Carolina this year. Now, I don't think he's going to end up putting up, Heisman numbers, anything like that. But I think he can be around, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's also probably going to have, 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns on the ground. So he should be accounting for, at least 30 total touchdowns. And South Carolina, like, this team looks way better this season, at least from what I've seen in the spring game, compared to where they were last year. Like, last year, like, their offensive line play wasn't really the greatest. The quarterback play wasn't all that great neither. So now the offensive line in the spring game definitely looked way better compared to what it did last year. Then you look at Spencer Rattler, like, his arm strength was on full display in the spring game. And it's like, he wasn't taking a lot of shots downfield, but it's like, you could really see it, because when he was dropping back, he was throwing the ball off his back foot. When he was rolling out, like, the ball was coming out with tons of velocity. Like, you can definitely see that Spencer Rattler has a lot of talent. And there are a lot of people who are Oklahoma fans who are rooting for Spencer Rattler, because many OU fans feel like the reason why Spencer Rattler's season kind of fell apart was largely due to Lincoln Riley. And I agree with that. Like, a lot of people clamor that Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive minds, if not the best offensive mind in college football, and I do agree with that. However, like, he deserves a lot of the blame for, why Spencer Rattler's season went the way it did, because he never really tried to adapt the offense. Like, okay, you understand, you know that Spencer Rattler isn't really the best quarterback when it comes to going through all his reads. So, kind of simplify it. Make it easier for him to make reads. Make a more quarterback-friendly scheme. Like, the dude is supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. He got Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield to the NFL, Heisman Trophy winners. We always hear about how much of a quarterback guru he is, but yet he wasn't really able to make those adjustments. So you bring in Spencer Rattler, South Carolina's Shane Beamer. I think that, bringing in Spencer Rattler has been a breath of fresh air for the South Carolina program. And not only has it been a breath of fresh air for the South Carolina program, but it's also been a breath of fresh air for Spencer Rattler, because when he was asked about, how last season went for Oklahoma, he described it as toxic. And I mean, like, a lot of people viewed his comments of him being, a drama queen, but I don't view it as him being a drama queen. Like, he was asked a question and he was being honest about it. Like, it was toxic. So for him going to South Carolina, I've been seeing him make a lot of posts saying how he loves the atmosphere. He loved the fans who were in attendance at the spring game. Like, he loved the energy that they brought to it. Like, the dude just looks very happy to be a South Carolina Gamecock. And a lot of people kind of overlook how productive this program has been over the last couple of decades. Like, this has been one of the better programs in all of college football, outside of having, the down years that they've have experienced. But I think that this is definitely a program that is on the up and up. And for Spencer Rattler, like, I expect him to be one of the better quarterbacks in college football. And there are still many people who have him slotted as being a first-round quarterback if he's able to bounce back this season. So for Spencer Rattler, I'm expecting him to be really productive with South Carolina this year. Even though they probably aren't going to do, nothing crazy. They're probably not going to win, like the SEC or anything like that. But what Spencer Rattler is going to do is he's going to make this program, a little bit more relevant in the national spotlight. Because a lot of people, unless you're a diehard college football fan, they're not really paying that much attention to South Carolina football. However, with Spencer Rattler at the helm, more people are going to have more eyes on South Carolina because a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing how this season plays out for Spencer Rattler. Is he going to look like the same quarterback that he was last year with OU? Or is he going to be a quarterback that is now going to be a little bit more calm, a little bit more patient when it comes to going through his reads, not just, going off his first read and then bailing outside the pocket and whatnot? Like, is he going to trust his offensive line? Like, I'm looking for development. Because we didn't really see a lot of development out of Spencer Rattler last year, which is why his season went the way he did. It did because he was the same quarterback that he was his freshman year. Still really good, super talented. It's just that he needed to get better. He needed to improve, and he didn't improve. And, Lincoln Riley has to get a lot of blame for the lack of development of Spencer Rattler. So I'm looking at this South Carolina coaching staff like, how are they going to coach this guy up? Like, how improved is he going to be? Like, I'm really excited to see how Spencer Rattler performs this season. I think he's going to end up bouncing back. I think he's going to be one of the more interesting stories in all of college football that a lot of people are going to be keeping tabs on. And the SEC East, man, is going to be really fun to watch because, like, I think Tennessee is a team that could be one of the biggest sleeper teams in all of college football. You also have Kentucky, you got Florida, you have Georgia, who is probably going to be the presumed favorite to win it all. But for Spencer Rattler, I feel like a change of scenery is definitely what he needs to get his career back on track. And I feel like he had a really good spring game as well. And we already know he's most likely going to be the starting quarterback. But for Spencer Rattler, I'm really excited to see how his career ends up panning out. And for South Carolina, I definitely feel like last year, you had some growing pains. You did. But this year, now you're going to have a chance to learn from those mistakes. Everybody's going to continue to get better. This is a team that I think could win, 8, maybe 9 games this season with Spencer Rattler at the helm at quarterback. But you guys let me know how you guys feel about Spencer Rattler. How good do you guys think Spencer Rattler will be this upcoming season with the Gamecocks? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, upload NFL videos, NFL content daily. Make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. Every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on every single podcasting platform. Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. I appreciate you guys for listening in on this episode of the JT Sports Podcast, and I will see you guys shortly with another episode.